if you look at the early incarnations, the OHS code is where violence was included in the Alberta OHS legislative regime. Violence was included in the code, but it was limited to physical violence. Violence as we would have understood it, 11 years ago, physical violence. But with the expansion of our understanding or our approach to what violence and harm means in the workplace, that by 2018, the Act and the code had been amended, whereby harassment is included, and violence has been expanded to include psychological injury or harm, domestic or sexual violence. And as I recall, Bill 168, one of the revolutionary aspects of it was the notion of domestic violence coming into the workplace. So the idea that employers had to be mindful of violence occurring at a worker's domestic life at home, and the possibility of it spilling into the workplace. And that was really something of a revolution.
In 2022, obviously, there was greater interest into investigations where mass outbreaks of COVID-19 occurred, particularly in the workplace. The typical process that played out was a breakout occurs, an investigation is conducted, and then there is ultimately the consideration for charges. So given that our 2-year limitation that we have here in Alberta, we would have expected charges to be laid in either 2021 or 2022. The reality is that there weren't many or at all any charges laid with respect to COVID-19 in the workplace. So we haven't seen very many cases at all of charges being laid with respect to COVID. Nothing really materialized out of those investigations that occurred here in Alberta. But ultimately, what we believe is why that happened is it's an issue with respect to evidence. So how can you prove that a worker was infected within the workplace as opposed to at the grocery store or at a family event or simply just out in public? So we believe this evidentiary issue ultimately helped reduce the possibility of charges being laid.
We'll blaze through a couple of these, and for your information, these cases come from the Alberta OHS website itself. So this is their own list of convictions. So if you want to keep up with where things are at, they regularly update a list of charges that have been laid and outcomes. So after an incident happens, investigation happens, let's say charges are laid. Well, once charges are laid, there's still investigation of a kind that happens, because now if you are charged, you will hopefully retain someone to assist you, and through that retainer and through the assistance you'll get, there might be other avenues explored on how to defend yourself after the charge has been laid. And once that defense happens, you may actually have a strong defense. And once a strong defense happens, you can, and often does happen, you can have a chat with the Crown.